Josh is here. Where you been?
Oh, I don't know. Doing other things at this hour.
Good to see you.
Hello, hello.
I didn't put much on the agenda today, but Josh put something on the agenda. And that into the presentation section.
So Josh just dropped an LGTM on my poll to clarify the tag schema for other hashes, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I had a moment to check it out a little bit ago.
I mean, if you're here, we can chat about some other stuff. Had some things sitting on the back burner for a while that just kind of working through bit by bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and kick this off. Folks are showing up here. I'll keep adding folks to the member list as they come in. I think we got all we need for the tag schema, unless anybody's got objections. So I'll go ahead and get that merged here in a minute. Blake 3 needs a couple reviews. Mine got knocked off, so I got to put it back on there. But need another image spec maintainer on that one to chime in and give a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. And that's, again, just registering the algorithm on Blake 3. Otherwise, Josh, let's turn it over to you.
Okay, that was easy. Hold on, I wasn't prepared. 1 second.
All my things are just like a couple PR reviews and just FYI, these things are sitting out there stuff. But we've chatted about them a few times this meeting already.
Okay. Hold on. I just installed Zoom for the first time in years. I'm not sure I can share right now.
Well,
Maybe someone else can pull up my PR and share. Sorry.
a lot of times we'll just drop it in notes and people pull it up as if they can. I'll do that right now. So if anybody's not looking at the notes, you got the PR sitting there in the chat message, you can pull it up.
I'm gonna see if this works. System settings.
At some point, Zoom decided to do funny things to my laptop every time I shared and crash and whatnot. So I stopped sharing screens in Zoom.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Okay. The infamous Apple wants you to restart. I don't know if that's a feature or a bug.
I want to know how it is that Josh has gotten by without having Zoom installed. Because that seems like he's made good life choices.
I think ChainGuard uses Google Meet internally exclusively.
And Josh, you are muted right now. I think it does that automatically when you share screens for some things.
Hello?
There you are.
Okay. This is weird. I'm sorry. Yeah, and I have been using the browser. Oh, my video's off. What is going on? This is weird. Yeah, I was super paranoid about the desktop app, but now I just don't care. Okay, so hi, nice to be back. Hi. This came up last week. So at ChainGuard, we're running a registry and the number of things in it has expanded and expanded. And, you know, as much as I am a proponent of everything we did with refers API, it hasn't been prioritized since that's come out. So, and Tianan left a message on this PR already, basically that I mentioned that what I'm proposing is sort of alleviating an anti-pattern. But what we're seeing is the number of the tags produced by cosine and the like are growing still. So what we've done is on our side, instead of fixing the base issue of refers in general, we've added a lot of filtering on the client side to filter out the SHA-256 tags. And so the idea here is the idea is to add a query string to tags listing that is similar to artifact type, where you can give it two values or a known set of, like an enum of values that is just defined by the spec. If you give it digest, it will only return things prefixed with SHA-256-. And I guess actually seeing the other PR that was just discussed, maybe we add Blake and SHA-512, even though those tags aren't really being produced anywhere. And then the opposite saying real, or maybe if you have an idea for a better word for that, but give me all the tags that aren't these SHA-256 tags. This isn't just, this doesn't just apply to the cosine stuff, even though that is our specific issue. This would also capture the fallback tags for refers API. And similarly to, I thought I put it in here. Yeah, so we have the header that's responded from the refers API that says filters applied. We could reuse that logic. And instead of saying OCI filters applied artifact type, we can say OCI filters applied tag type. The client would know then whether or not it's getting that filtered list or not. That's basically it. I know it's working on legacy things that we're not trying to promote, but that's just the reality of our world right now. So I thought I'd propose it, come to this meeting and see how people feel. That's it.
I'm not a fan. I hate saying that right to you. So direct
That's
like
fine.
that. Two questions though. One, from the cosine side, do you envision the .sig content being a long-term path for cosine, or are they going to switch over to refers in the not too distant future?
There's the
I've been following like the bundle discussions over there.
yeah, I mean, basically no comment. It's not an area that is, it's something that I am passionate about, but customers really don't care at all. So for the CLI that we provide to them automatically filters these out for them, and and the UI that we have filters it out for them, and they don't care. I think Docker Hub does a similar thing. As far as like the open source tool doing better, that there was stuff in flight a year ago, and I haven't seen that being used or progress. So and my priorities like here have shifted a bit, so I don't see a near term where we're upgrading to that.
crushing my hopes because I was hoping it wouldn't be too far off in the future for them. I'm at least looking at some of those discussions. I feel like there's progress being made. I just don't know how quick the progress is overall, or how to judge what that pace of that progress is from the outside. The other question I wanted to ask is, this depends on a registry upgrading. And so we're saying a registry is going to upgrade to add this feature. And if we were depending on all the tools to use refers, and that would mean that a registry adds this, but they don't add the refers API.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I think it comes down to the clients being used to produce these things. So, like if things aren't pushing with subjects, then for the registry to add refers when things aren't having subjects is meaningless. The thing I do like about this is that the header, we came up with the header thing for filters applied, and it's kind of like, if you don't understand that, you wouldn't be sending tag type query string. If you don't receive that, you know the registry doesn't understand it. I know what you mean, where you're the registry would add this but not refers. Yeah, it doesn't seem
Assuming
like
we are
the
using
proper
refers.
order. Yeah, it doesn't seem like the proper order of operations.
And I feel like if this is something that's bugging users, they would be pushing for all the tools to use refers, which maybe I need to shout louder on the cosine side of things.
It is not, again, customers don't even really know that these things exist. From the engineering side, we've had to add a lot of client-side filtering, and we have support people who get confused by these. But it would save a lot of requests, because every time we are publishing a new, even if we don't update the image, we're publishing new .sig, .att tags. So I acknowledge that it's a shortcoming in the way that we're doing things, especially given we were included in these discussions. But it's very low priority right now. So that's, I'm coming as a this is, you know, the old Josh was the idealistic Josh, and I'm coming to you a year later as this is what the reality is. But
26, I don't know your name.
Sorry. Brandon, I'm trying to understand why this is a bad idea. We have requirements for tag filtering as well. Just trying to see why wouldn't consider this. I mean, this is a very specific case, but I could imagine having something like a filter as a query param, so it'll filter out, or it'll only include certain tags with start with something or something like that.
a regular expression was another thing that someone on our side mentioned, but it feels wild. But yeah, I think like if you have different, like if you're producing tags that are specific to your use case that have nothing to do with the cosine stuff, I think it's an interesting thing. Like if yeah, let's say you want to like filter out RC tags, like that would be
Exactly. Yeah. There's two things I feel I really miss in the tags list API, which is filtering and ordering. And we had to basically invent like parallel APIs for tags list, which do this. I'm trying to see why we don't want to include them in the tags list.
Do people feel like a regular expression is a good solution at all? Does anyone
feel
else
like-
feel like there's a use case beyond?
As a end user, sometimes when I look at my own repo, it's if I pull the tag listing up, it's completely cluttered because it's nothing but .sig all over the place.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm often looking for is what was the most recent version of this package, and so I know that they're releasing with Simver, and so I'm only interested in those tags.
Yes, exactly. Those are the two biggest like things we want as well. Like we want to know when I do a tags list, I just want the latest tags. I don't care for like alphabetical ordering. And the other thing is I want to filter out non-relevant tags. Those are the two things that's what we have like this parallel API for.
The time it was pushed, is that's not encoded anywhere, right? I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
It would be up for the registry to track that. Which gets into my thought if I start making changes to the tag API, I'm immediately thinking toward a version 2 of the whole API. And not just making a dumb listing of text strings of tags, but making them full descriptors, including pull counts, push time, all those other metadatas that a lot of registries include, and making those all optional, but data that the registry can provide to the end user so that they don't have to then do a head request on every manifest to see what the digest is or do all those other details.
Yeah, if the tags endpoint, hi, Harry, Defense Unicorns. If the tags endpoint could include at least the descriptor of what that tag refers to, that'd be really great. Because instead of, if you wanted to say query every single tag and see what manifest is underlying it, you have to do the tag list API, and then you have to go through every single one of those and perform the head request in order to determine if it's an index or a manifest. And then if you want a specific architecture, then you have to drill down into that index, and it's a whole mess of things if you want to query all the things in an image.
And I would imagine users want to filter not just on the string of the tag, but they might also want to start digging down into artifact types and say, show me all the things that don't have an artifact type of a signature, or show me all the things that have, an image, that doesn't have an artifact type set, and just filter all those out.
Yeah, or give me all the images which have a specific artifact type set. Yeah, like I like the idea of like revamping the tags list. It's more data and better search capabilities. I'm down to work with whoever to implement that.
That's like priority number 37 on my long list right now.
I just want to fully understand what was just said. So is the idea that this would not be a static list or a list of strings, but a list of objects containing more information like the digest and
I would look at like the GCR response as kind of a little bit of inspiration there, how they've packed multiple things in. And I would look at it as something that the client can request with accept header. And the server responds with a content type header of saying, hey, I flipped from V1 to V2 in my response.
so, okay. What is the accept? Is there not an accept?
I think this one's just an application JSON.
Okay. Okay, I mean, I'm trying to page that into how this solves the original problem.
It's just you kind of hit the third rail on my personal thought process, and I just took off in a different direction.
So you would hit this endpoint and you could possibly say accept JSON, comma, new media type. And if you get back the new one, you know to
Yeah.
do, that you've had a filtered list.
Accept application vendor OCI tag listing v2. And if I get that, if the registry responds back, okay, here's the media type of v2, the response in there is no longer this little short text listing. It's now the version 2 of that includes all the metadata, includes the descriptor, other things that registries can send back.
And I think the idea would be that secondary response, you could have a filter query that, because it's
Yeah.
a more rich data, that this API supports filtering versus the old API is still the same static regular list, but the new API supports more, because it has much more in-depth data, it supports a more robust filtering API.
Yeah, you might filter by the tag list or the tag string itself, regex or whatever we want to allow in there. You might filter on the time that content was pushed. You might include headers back that say this is the e tag of when this content was changed last. And so if there's a system out there that's checking when a new tag was pushed, it queries this with a head request or, you know, a conditional get request that knows if the content's changed since the last time it was queried the tag listing and saves the registry from sending back all the data if it's already seen it.
What about filtering then? I think this is a good approach, but what about filtering?
Yeah, we were saying that while you were typing there. So
I'm sorry.
no. I just think it's hard to type and listen at the same time. So I was just going through it. So like a regex on the tag name itself, you could have a search query on the media types of the artifact type. Each of those could be parameters. And then I'll throw out even another idea in there, which is that you could potentially, I think it's the e tag header in there. It's the conditional get request where you can say, if this hasn't changed, don't bother sending it again, or whatnot. We were trying to add that to some of the other specs, but if you see the e tag header in there, the client knows that this is the current server content. And if it's changed, it'll send you the content if you request it again. But if it hasn't changed, it just says you've already got the latest. You don't have to request it again.
Does this summarize what mostly?
Some of my current ideas. This is all getting into
Okay.
tag listing v2.
Yeah. Okay. So we would need to come back with what that format of that might look like too.
Yeah.
So we need
I
to
think-
flesh out the query and what are the query params and what is the new format and also what is this media type?
Yeah. Tianon's in the comments talking about what he's seen in the GCR response. Definitely you want the full descriptor. You don't want just the string, but there's a lot of other metadata that can be put in there. What time the image was pushed, pull counts, other kinds of metadata that registries are keeping on this content that people are interested in seeing.
I hadn't seen the Zoom chat until until just now. I think
Yeah,
the
we-
browser is much better. Okay. All right. We can. I'll stop sharing. But okay. Cool.
Oh, shucks. I was enjoying having you sharing for a while. Since you're here, there are two things that have kind of been on the backlog for a bit. One we were just chatting about last week, which was, hey, do we want to reformat the whole distribution spec to make it more readable? So figured I would give that one a little bit of extra visibility. And there is another one I'm going to go dig up in a minute. This probably isn't the best, but
I would approve a PR that reformats it without changing the content for sure.
oh, see, you threw that condition in there.
Yeah, do not backdoor changes like has been done in the past.
No, the comment that came up last week was, hey, last time we refactored it, we lost half the content. Can we put it all back now? And my comment was, what if I took another half out and we're down to 25% of the spec?
Yeah, I think the
it.
hard part is who's going to do it.
That is always
Yeah,
the
just
hard part.
throw thing into the ring. So I just finished implementing the latest MVP of the OCI client spec in Kotlin because we had a need for transporting around OCI artifacts via Android, and so I had to write a client implementation for Android. And the couple things that are definitely missing from the spec, namely scopes, are especially client scopes are not really fully talked about, like what scopes are needed per request, depending upon what you're trying to do.
Authentication.
Yeah, and authentication in general is not really talked about, especially with how there is a distribution specific authentication flow that is not really documented that I just implemented just by reading auras, and it just copied their logic. So if their logic is flawed, my logic is flawed as well. But yeah, authentication and scopes definitely need some love.
And there was a working group about that.
Still is.
No.
We just haven't met in like 6 months.
So, but that, I mean, that's like separate than the formatting issue. And I think that was never in there.
Yeah, it was never in there. Needs get added. And so when someone said, let's support SHA-512 content in a registry, this is something I don't think you've been around for, Josh, but you can push SHA-512 technically according to the spec as long as you push all your content by digest. But you can't push SHA-512 content if you want to push the tag. Because you push the tag, you can't specify the digest. The registry tells you, here's your digest back, and that's what you get stuck with. So there was some work to start going through that, and then we started looking at what would it take to change the conformance test to support that, and I realized I'm pretty much doubling every test because everything needs to get retested against SHA-512. All the tests for refers, for pushing an index, for pushing an image, pushing an artifact, everything out there needs to get double checked for this. And so in doing that, I said, well, I don't want to double everything. I need to just completely refactor the conformance test. So I started looking at that. And as I was looking at that, saying, okay, it's going to be a big lift. There's going to be a few other things that are going to get pulled into there. And I think this goes into W. King, you and I back and forth on that one. The challenge of refactoring the entire conformance test is one, we're doing auth in the conformance test. We just didn't specify auth in the spec. And so I think that would be good if we got the auth in the spec, and that's the working group. But the other thing that is kind of nagging me a little bit is that we've got the streaming blob upload, which is used by pretty much every push by the Docker engine since OCI started the spec, and we never specified it. Felt like a little bit of an oversight to not define how Docker is pushing content to a registry. So thought that would be another good thing in there. We also have that in the conformance test. It's just not in the spec. So between those two things, I feel like there's a little bit of work for throwing in the stream blob upload, but just someone needs to take the lead on that. And then the working group on auth, like you say, Harry, it's not in the spec. Everybody needs it. And there's a lot of loose ends there to tie up. There's a lot of edge cases that are not very clear until you really start digging into it and you start doing a cross-repository blob mount, or you try to decide, is the registry the one leading who's defining the scopes, or is the client the one leading who's doing the scopes and it just knows in advance? And there are varying opinions on that.
Yep. Yeah, I just copied over or translated Aura's and distributions unit tests for scopes and cleaning scopes and all that jazz, and just wrote it in Kotlin. So I'm passing all the same unit tests you guys are, but I don't know. There's no guarantee of behavior of how, who's really owning scopes. Because like per the spec, the registry is supposed to be telling you the scopes that you need with your request, but that's actually a lie. You actually also have to calculate client side the scopes that you need per request. And then you need to merge the two of them together because the server may be telling you, oh, you also need these AWS scopes with your stuff. And the client, you're not going to know about those AWS scopes yourself.
There's also scopes that are not defined in the spec for deleting. They're in implementations, but they're not defined in the distribution project itself. Defined this back when it was under Docker. They put all that together. But there's a delete scope. And so it's like, oh, surprise, that's there. And different implementations don't always like it if you start requesting lots of scopes. If you request too many scopes, I know ACR definitely throws it at me. And I don't know if this is just because people that use ACR have a whole lot of repositories that are copying back and forth, but I have blown out whatever limit is that they have on how many scopes you're allowed to request, at which point you start hitting a header size limit and it just starts rejecting request. So yeah, Josh, you've missed all the fun stuff we want to start working on. We just haven't had the chance for a long while.
Yeah, this is what I missed.
Just reading Trevor's comment there. Yeah, the challenge, Trevor, when I started going through the 512, everything doubled, and I'm not going to maintain that.
Right, but the doubling you get from SHA 512 is not like doesn't make auth worse, or like all the other stuff. The other sticky problems. That's just like there's code that runs the conformance tests. The code could get refactored to allow like a pluggable digest thing, and auth is still undefined, and like hopefully the conformance suite's guesses about auth match up with the registry being exercised, but it doesn't. It's like it's still orthodox, and it's still a problem. And I definitely understand like the rabbit holing draw of like you're sitting right next to a problem and staring you in the face and you're like, oh, I really want to fix this problem. But
in orders of priorities, though,
but it is
I want to
support
support auth before I support
problem.
512.
Right, and that's fine. I feel like, but that's like everybody gets to make their own priority decisions, and like auth is a bigger deal for you than the hashes, and then you go work on the auth first. That makes lots of sense. But I don't think that means that like nobody works on the hashes if there's somebody else where hashing is a priority. It seems like they could get a refactor for to unblock. Like, I don't really care about the conformance suite. We have our own like QECI team. I feel like having a conformance suite helps kind of share out some QECI effort. And I like communities and I like sharing, but the I feel like it's secondary to having like the most important thing is having a spec that's clear about how registry should work, and then the next thing you want is some way to test that, and then the next thing that you want is like an efficient system that runs those tests, so it's not like a huge pile of tech debt spaghetti code. And I feel like each of those are, like, you can chop it wherever you can chop it, depending on how much time you have to sink into it. And it would be great if like everything was there and it was all beautiful, but like I don't have that kind of money.
I know you're asking to look at the current progress, and I don't know if you dug into it too much. There's not a lot of progress. There's a whole lot of open ground there that has not been defined, and pieces that have not been written yet. And so I don't think it's the stuff that I've gotten to so far is at a good point for people to collaborate on. I feel like it needs to have more fleshed out so that people have places to plug in and start adding the missing gaps.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, I don't want to like sail into somebody else's code and be like, "Here's how you should do it." Bye. Like nobody wants like someone to dump something on them and then wander away. So I have no problems like waiting until there's enough scaffolding so that it's clear what the maintainers are interested in picking up and what a helpful contribution looks like. I just feel like it seems like auth, especially with years of unclear spec, I can't imagine that auth is something where some people sit down for a few months and then they're like, oh, we figured it out. Like, we'll just add this text to the spec and now everything will be fine. I think it's going to be like people start looking and they're like, oh man, people do lots of different things. Now we need to try to talk them into some kind of consensus, and that could take years, and it might never happen, depending on like who's in the conversation and how committed they are to whatever they're currently doing.
So the initial push for the working group is that we want to define what's already being done by everybody. And so we're looking at what the distribution project specified way back in the day, what we can already leverage that is defined in an RFC out there already. We're talking about OIDC or some of the other specs that we've been leveraging. And so I don't think it's an impossible lift. I think it just takes some drive to actually go through and say, here are the
But like which
lines when you start putting in our spec.
registries get into the by everybody bucket? Like there must be thousands of registry implementations now, and maybe like not all of them are important enough for someone to like track them down and be like, talk to us about your auth. But like I mean, I know people to throw together a registry now. It's just like, oh, I'm just gonna throw this whole in some giant production engine. Auth is for those is like, I feel I had I don't know, it's fine, whatever. Yeah.
I'm guessing some of the people that have written other implementations, they at least tested against some of the major clients out there. They're going to test against like Containerd and Docker and Podman or something like that and say, okay, let me make sure that it doesn't completely break on those major implementations. And similar for clients, they're going to say, let me make sure that I work against Docker Hub, the distribution project, and a few other major implementations. Sasha, are you jump off? Yeah. Jory, are we missing anything from some of your updates on terms of getting the gang together?
No, I did, I think, drop a link to sign up for participating in the OCI programming committee, the container plumbing days event on August 28th. I'm getting a bit more data from our events team about like what's included with all of that. Can we do recording, like that kind of stuff, which will be helpful. But if you want to help program a mini summit for the community in Amsterdam in August, we'd love to have your participation. That's it. And I'm chatting with Sam about a broken Slack inviter link, but other than that,
I think, did that get fixed? I think it got fixed.
it's fixed. We're just discussing how to make that not happen again. Maybe.
It seems like they had some sort of service outage.
I'm just happy I think we did fix the redirect on the thing. I never tested it in production to see if that redirect works. But I can find out real quick. Or maybe I can't. I'll have to go find out real slow later on. But that conformance link that we had that wasn't redirecting for the longest time. Need to go through and make sure he's good. Sam, the governance redirect that we were working on.
I thought you submitted that.
Yeah, the pull request went through. I just never actually tested it in prod. And I'm frantically looking through to find one of our links to one of those things, but I'll pull that up later on.
I think I just did the governance redirect, and it seemed like it worked.
Yeah,
I can go find
on the
that
top
pull
of the
request and-
website, the governance goes
Oh, okay.
direct. But there's a bunch of content out
Okay.
there. There's a bunch of content out there that was pointing to the old place on the website, and so I need to go dig some of that up.
Okay, I can go find your pull request and like put a curl in there just to be like, here's how it is now. So, no worries.
It worked in CI. It worked everywhere else. I just haven't gone
Brandon,
through and actually.
It works now.
Okay. Problem solved. That one had been bugging us forever. In addition to the Slack link being, I think there was some chat links that were going funny places. In fact, I suspect that DNS for chat.opencontainers.org still goes somewhere funny. All right, anything else that we want to chat about today? Got 15 minutes if you want to, otherwise we can break early. I hate to run away early when Josh is here and Mike shows up late. Good seeing you, Mike.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Brent.
What's up? Hey,
You can have social hour if you want to, or you can run away. Your call.
We're good.
I'm hungry
Who's
and
All right. In honor of Josh getting a good lunch, a fruit fly free lunch, let's break early and have a great rest of your week, and hopefully see a bunch of you back next time.
Jory.
Too late.
Half a second.